After I told my coworker I couldn't cover his shift again, he sneered in front of everyone, "Wow, guess you're too busy being a princess to help the team." As I walked away, he called after me, "Good luck finding friends in this place." So I sent an anonymous tip to HR about his habit of clocking in coworkers who were still at home. When they pulled the timecards, he had no idea what hit him. I've been working at a grocery store chain in Flagstaff, Arizona for 3 years. It's not exciting, but it's stable. Pays decent, got health insurance, and my manager mostly leaves me alone if I do my job. That's all I want. Doug showed up about 6 months ago. Right away, I didn't like him. Too loud, too fake. Always joking with managers, trying to get on their good side. He talked to the young cashiers like he was a frat boy at a party. Girls smiled to be polite, but they all looked uncomfortable when he hung around too long. Guys either laughed along or kept quiet. I stayed out of it. I worked in frozen foods. Doug got assigned there too. That meant we shared shifts a few times a week. I kept it professional. He didn't. He talked nonstop, mostly about himself. Bragging about how he used to run a warehouse, how he once dated someone almost famous, how he's not scared to say what he thinks. After a couple of weeks, he started asking me for favors. First time, it was to switch shifts. I didn't mind. Second time, he said his cousin was in the hospital. I agreed again. Third time, I said no. He didn't like that. The next day, he came into the break room while I was heating up lunch. There were 3 other people sitting at the table. Without looking at me, he said loud and clear, "Wow, guess you're too busy being a princess to help the team." Everyone got quiet. I just stared at the microwave. I was too shocked to say anything. He walked out like nothing happened. Right before the door closed behind him, he shouted, "Good luck finding friends in this place." That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not because I care what Doug thinks about me, but because he tried to humiliate me in front of coworkers. Over what? Not covering his lazy ass again? I thought about letting it go. Just keeping my head down. But then I remembered something. Doug had this little routine with a guy named Matt. They were buddies. They started most morning shifts together. I'd noticed it weeks ago. They'd clock in at the same time, but Matt wouldn't actually show up until 30, sometimes 40 minutes later. Doug was clocking Matt in early. And Matt was getting paid for time he wasn't even there. That's fraud. Straight up against company policy. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. It was happening often. I never said anything. Not my problem, I figured. But after Doug went out of his way to embarrass me, I decided to make it my problem. Our company has an anonymous HR reporting system. I sat down that night and typed everything out. Gave dates. Gave times. Gave names. I didn't write it like I was angry. I wrote it like a concerned employee who noticed a pattern. 3 days later, corporate HR showed up. No warning. The store manager looked tense all day. Meetings were happening behind closed doors. People started whispering. I kept my mouth shut and did my job. That afternoon, I saw Doug walking into the office with 2 supervisors. He didn't look cocky anymore. He looked confused. 15 minutes later, Matt was called in too. The next morning, Doug wasn't on the schedule. Neither was Matt. Word spread fast, they were suspended pending an investigation. HR had pulled timecards and security footage. It all lined up. By the end of the week, their lockers were cleaned out. I never saw them again. Nobody ever mentioned my name. Nobody asked me if I was the one who reported them. But I started getting more respect around the store. People who never talked to me before started asking me if I wanted to join them for lunch, or offered to swap shifts with me when I needed a break. I didn't want to be part of the clique. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. Now I am. Doug thought he could make me small in front of everyone. He forgot that quiet people notice everything. And sometimes, we hit back where it hurts most. After Doug and Matt were gone, the store felt quieter. Not just literally, but in this weird, nervous way. Like everyone was waiting for something else to happen. I figured it would pass. But it didn't. A week after they were fired, our assistant manager, Brooke, started acting strange around me. Brooke was in her mid-30s, sharp, always professional. She didn't talk much unless she had to. But after everything went down, she kept stopping by my aisle. Asking questions like, "Hey, you notice anything else going on we should know about?" Or, "Anyone else doing things they shouldn't?" I said no every time. Because I wasn't going to turn into the store snitch. I got rid of Doug for a reason. I didn't want this turning into some witch hunt. But Brooke didn't let up. I started hearing from others that she was asking around about who tipped off HR. She didn't say my name, but people started looking at me differently. Some of them backed off, stopped talking when I walked by. One cashier even asked me straight out, "Hey, did you get Doug canned?" I said, "No idea what you're talking about." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her face. The shift in the air got worse when Matt came back. Yeah, HR let Matt return. Apparently, he played dumb well enough to avoid getting fired. Claimed he didn't know Doug was clocking him in, said he never asked for it, blah blah blah. Management bought it, or maybe they just didn't want to deal with legal trouble. Either way, he was back on the schedule 2 weeks later. And he looked right at me his first day back. Not a nod, not a word. Just this long, dead stare like he knew. Like he wanted me to know he knew. I ignored him. But the next few weeks, my shifts started changing. I got stuck with closing more often. Working weekends. My hours were cut by 4 a week. When I asked about it, the manager just said, "Trying to spread things out fairly." I didn't buy it. Then one night, I found my locker open. Nothing was stolen. But someone had gone through it. I could tell. My water bottle was turned sideways, my phone charger unplugged, my notebook missing a page. I didn't report it. I just started locking up tighter and keeping my head down. But then someone left a note in my locker. Just one line, "You should have kept your mouth shut." I brought that to Brooke. She looked me in the eye and said, "If you can't prove who did it, there's nothing I can do." That's when I realized something. Brooke wasn't just suspicious of me, she was mad. Maybe Doug had friends higher up. Maybe someone in that little boys' club didn't like how fast the axe fell. Or maybe Brooke just didn't like that someone went around her to corporate. Whatever the reason, I wasn't safe anymore. I knew I had to be careful. But I wasn't done yet. Things got worse after the note. I tried to brush it off, told myself maybe it was just some dumb prank. But the next time I worked a closing shift, someone slashed my back tire in the parking lot. Clean cut, straight through the rubber. No cameras pointed that far out. I had to wait an hour for a tow truck and spend $120 on a replacement. That night, while I sat on the curb watching my car get loaded up, I realized something: someone wanted me gone. Matt was always nearby during my shifts now. Stocking shelves 2 aisles away, accidentally bumping into me with carts, making little remarks like, "Snitches think they're safe until they're not." I reported it to Brooke again. She shrugged and said, "Don't escalate things." I didn't have to. Matt did it for me. A week later, I came into work and found my name tag snapped in half in my locker. Nothing else, just the tag, broken clean down the middle. That same day, I caught him and 2 other guys from Produce laughing behind the loading dock. I didn't hear what they were saying, but one of them looked straight at me and said, "Some people don't know when they're not wanted." I wasn't paranoid. They were coming after me. But I didn't go back to HR this time. I went straight to corporate. I took everything with me. Pictures of the note, a photo of my tire, even a written timeline of every change in my shifts and hours. I wrote it all up and sent it directly to the regional director's office through the internal complaint system. Not anonymous this time. A week passed. Then 2. Nothing. Until one Monday morning, a corporate vehicle pulled into the lot. Out came a woman in a black suit with a badge that said Compliance Officer. She didn't meet with Brooke. She didn't call a manager meeting. She called me. Took me into the office and closed the door. I read your report, she said. And we're going to fix this. But I need you to stay quiet for now. She handed me a plain white folder. Inside was a copy of my original HR tip about Doug. It had been printed and left in the assistant manager's office, where Brooke kept her files. Someone had leaked it. Someone wanted me exposed. I need you to act like nothing's happening, the compliance officer said. Can you do that for a little while longer? I said yes. Because now I had proof that the game wasn't just between me and Doug anymore. It went higher than I thought. And I wasn't done fighting. The next few weeks felt like walking through fire with my mouth shut. I kept showing up. I kept working my shifts. I didn't say a word to anyone, even when Matt accidentally knocked a box off the top shelf near me and it hit my shoulder. I took the bruise and smiled like nothing happened. But inside, I was burning. The compliance officer. Her name was Melissa, checked in with me quietly every few days. She told me not to confront anyone, not to even hint that I knew what was going on. They were building a case. Watching the cameras more closely. Looking at phone logs, texts, all of it. I just had to wait. Then one Friday, things broke wide open. Matt showed up drunk. Not falling down drunk, but enough that you could smell it. Enough that his words slurred a little when he talked to customers. Brooke pulled him into the office. She didn't send him home. Just gave him water and told him to sit for an hour. I watched it happen. I was near the service desk when I saw it all. She protected him again. That was the last straw for Melissa. She returned the next morning with 2 more suits and a regional VP. They held a private meeting with the store manager and pulled every one of Brooke's HR files. Then they pulled her. Gone. Walked out with a boxed-up desk and a look on her face like she still didn't believe it. Turned out, she'd been covering up more than just the note. She'd ignored 3 separate complaints from other employees: harassment, schedule manipulation, favoritism. She was on the edge already. My report had been the final push. Matt didn't last the week. When they pulled his timecards again, they found more issues. Clocking out late when he'd left early, punching in for a friend who was fired months ago, even stealing boxes of snack food during closing shifts. Melissa didn't wait for HR. She fired him on the spot. As he walked out, he looked at me and said, "You think you're safe now?" I didn't answer. Because honestly, I wasn't proud of what came next. I thought things would feel better. That I'd feel justice. Relief. Something. But all I felt was hollow. I didn't lose my job. But I lost something else. Word got around fast about the folder in Brooke's office. People knew I went to corporate. Knew I'd made the reports. The same coworkers who had invited me to lunch weeks earlier now avoided eye contact. The people who used to joke with me stopped talking when I walked by. I became the guy who takes problems to the top. And maybe I deserve that. I did what I thought was right. But I also waited too long. Let things build up. Let myself stay silent when I should have spoken up earlier. Maybe if I had, none of this would have gotten so bad. Maybe Doug wouldn't have felt so safe acting like he did. Maybe Matt wouldn't have thought he could bully someone out of their job. Maybe I wouldn't be standing in the freezer aisle alone again, stocking boxes while people whisper in the break room. But I'd do it again. Because the truth matters. Even if it costs you everything. And if someone else ever thinks they can treat me like trash in front of the team again, they'll learn the hard way. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It just means I'm listening, watching, waiting. And when the time comes, I hit where it hurts the most.